Good evening. The time is now 7:02, and I would like to call the Beloit City Council meeting to order at this time. Can we have roll call? Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. May we all stand, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, Special Orders of the Day and Announcements. Item 3A, please.
This is introducing our newly hired and promoted employees.
Madam City Manager.
Thank you. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce formally our new Director of Public Works, Laura Williamson. If you could please come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori.
So we are thrilled to have you. And I'm also introducing 2 interns in the City Manager's office. We have coming down to say hello, Jack Johnston. He is a senior at Whitewater University. And we also have Elizabeth Kelly. She is a high school junior at Beloit Memorial. So both of them are working in my office and appreciate all the great ideas and research and work that they're doing for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And at this time, I get to introduce Fire Chief Brad Liggett, who has a number of promotions and new firefighters to introduce to the council and to the public. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much, City Councilors, my fellow citizens. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize some new employees this evening and some promotions. First, I'd like to introduce Dan Peace. Dan is currently the chief of Highland Park Fire Department, and he has been appointed my assistant chief. He'll be joining us on March 2nd and assisting us with the leadership of the department as my number 2. So I appreciate Dan's leadership, and we are welcoming him aboard. I'd also like to introduce Jason Griffin, Deputy Chief Jason Griffin. He's wearing his brass already. We got him to work a week ago on Monday. He's in his second week, and as the Deputy Chief of Fire Prevention, he has the rest of this week in orientation. Then he begins supervising his shift in his division on the 27th. Also with me this evening, and if you would all stand for me, as I call your name, raise a hand. As I call your name, raise a hand. Go ahead, stand up, folks. Yeah. Choir, come on. There we go. Storm Ledoux, excuse me, sorry. Gabriel Cattell, Brooke Ames, Nicholas Keating, T.J. Huffman, there he is, Major Kane, Edward Ian Richardson, and DeCarlos Nora. All these folks are newly appointed firefighters. They began their orientation week this morning. It's been a long day for them. And they'll have 2 weeks worth of orientation and a live burn on March 3rd, and then they'll be assigned to shift after that day. I want to welcome them all to the department and helping us get back to full strength, thanking the city manager, our HR department, and my recruitment team for getting this job done. They did an exceptional job, so thank you very much. You want to say anything?
Well, I haven't started yet. I start on March 2nd, and I can't thank Chief Liggett enough for all the information that he is constantly sending me and getting me ready so that when I start on March 2nd, I'll hit the ground running. So thank you, Chief.
Jason?
Well, thank you guys very much for the opportunity to be Deputy Chief of the City of Beloit. It's quite an honor. I've been here since I was born. My dad was on the fire department 28 years, and the City of Beloit's meant a lot to me, and meant a lot to my family. So I'm very excited. As Chief said, I just got promoted last week, and I've already started my 40 hours of training last week, and I got one more week of it, and then I start on shift. So I'm really excited to help the citizens of Beloit and everything else I can do. So thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council, city manager, and staff. One of the directives that we provided to the city manager and staff over a year ago is as we have people leaving the city, we want them to replace individuals so we're being more reflective of our community. And I think we're headed in the right direction. We're not there yet. I think we have a ways to go, but we are certainly headed in the right direction. Took some policy changes, some procedure changes, but I think we're headed in the right direction. So I want to commend everybody that had a hand in this, making sure that as we move forward, and now we're not only talking about police and fire, but we're talking about the city organization as a whole, that we need to be more reflective of our community that's here. So I'm pleased with the direction that we're headed in. I'm going to say continue in that direction. I'm going to ask the council to continue to push for that because it's truly important to the city and to our residents. So just wanted to make that comment. Item 3B, please.
Is a proclamation recognizing March 2nd, 2008, is a proclamation recognition of the Beloit International Film Festival.
Vice President Duncan.
Okay. And thank you. I'm happy to have Marty Dench, who is the BIF Board President, joining me, and also Max Macon, who is the BIF Executive Director. Whereas the Beloit International Film Festival will launch its 13th season on February 23, 2018, presenting 10 days of outstanding examples of independent films from the United States and some 30 nations, and whereas BIF and almost 400 volunteers have this past year welcomed more than 8,000 people to its programs, making a significant economic impact on Beloit while celebrating its downtown. And whereas BIF welcomes BIF 2018 Honorary Chair Ryan Churchill, Beloit Memorial High School alumnus, and star of the romantic comedy 60 Yard Line, and whereas another Beloit Memorial High School alumnus and Beloit College graduate Max Macon is marking his first year as Executive Director of BIF, and whereas BIF has engaged this community, its citizens, institutions, and businesses in its efforts to bring Beloit to the world and the world to Beloit. And whereas BIF this year asked the support of the Wisconsin Arts Board and funds from the state of Wisconsin and the National Endowment for the Arts. Now, therefore, the President of the Beloit City Council hereby honors the Beloit International Film Festival on its 13th season and thanks the hundreds of volunteers for celebrating the city and its people through the power of film. The President further urges all citizens to enjoy these programs and to extend the welcome of our community to the filmmakers and visitors to BIF 2018, presented this 19th day of February 2018. Congratulations. And you may want to share some words for us.
Thank you, I do.
Okay.
Council President Levy, Vice President Duncan, and City Council, City Manager, thank you very much for this recognition. We appreciate it more than we can say. And on behalf of the Board of Directors of the BIF, of the Beloit International Film Festival, and our hundreds of volunteers, I thank you. The festival does begin this Friday. We just actually had a board meeting this evening, making our final plans for it. I think we're ready. We'll find that out Friday night. But it does run from February 23rd, this Friday, until March 4th. That's a 10-day festival. We want to thank the Hendricks Group for their continued support. When this idea was first presented to Ken and Diane Hendricks, they enthusiastically gave their support to it, and that they have ever since. We also need to thank Beloit College for the great cooperation that we've gotten all through the years, and to Visit Beloit for their generous support in helping us market the film festival. We left some program books for all of you. We hope you get a chance to see at least some of the films. Some highlights from it will be our very popular sing-along. This year the movie is Frozen, one of the most popular animated films in recent years. So warm up your singing voices and come out for that. Our classic film will be The Sting, I remember when it first came out, so I guess I'm getting kind of old if that's a classic film now. But that will be our classic film, and that's sponsored by First National Bank. And our silent film showcase, The Cameraman with Buster Keaton, and the musical accompaniment will be by the Beloit High School Jazz Orchestra. Really world-renowned in their own right anymore. And we were very, very excited, not only that they were able to do that for us, but for an opportunity for us to showcase that talent. I do want to point out some hard-hitting documentaries, one of which is called All the Queen's Horses. You've heard about the scandal with the city of Dixon and the absconding of funds from there. We will be presenting a documentary about that. The Blood is on the Doorstep, which is about a police-involved shooting in Milwaukee. That's a very hard-hitting documentary, and we hope people from Beloit are able to come out for that. And then Biff Cares, sponsored by Beloit Health Systems. The Desert Around Me, which is about attention deficit, and particularly caused by these little screens we like to hold in front of us. And The Making of a Soldier. This came to us last year from Harlem High School. They have a project where they do interviews with veterans, and they've been putting together documentaries of the footage from those. So we're very proud of those and all of the entries in the film festival. We're very proud of the fact that the city has supported it for all these years, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we go to item 3C, I would like to let the new employees know if you would like to leave at this time, you can. If you saw the agenda, it's going to be a long agenda. Chief Liggett, I know the firefighters had a long day, but, I think we should just let them hang out here for the rest of the evening. Now, if anybody wants to leave, feel free to go ahead and leave. We don't. Once you get introduced, we don't want you to stay here if you don't have to, so everybody don't get up at once, okay?
You just don't want to pay them.
Chiefs, tell them it's okay for them to leave. They wouldn't take my word. They had to take the Chiefs' word.
Well, they were going to leave the
I know. Item 3C, please.
A proclamation recognizing March 2nd, 2018 as Roy Chapman Andrews Day.
Now I have a proclamation to present to Joe Soderman, who is the president of Roy Chapman Andrews Society, and Celestino Ruffini, who is a board member of Roy Chapman Andrews Society. So can you come up? Okay. Whereas Roy Chapman Andrews devoted his childhood in Beloit, Wisconsin to a tireless pursuit of knowledge about the natural world, and whereas Roy Chapman Andrews secured his formal education through Beloit schools, culminating in his graduation from Beloit College in 1906, and whereas Roy Chapman Andrews went on from Beloit to become a world-famous explorer for New York's American Museum of Natural History, discovering new species of animals, including during a series of daring expeditions to the Gobi of Mongolia, previously unknown dinosaurs, the first nest of dinosaur eggs and fossils of mammals that lived alongside dinosaurs. And whereas the accomplishments of Roy Chapman Andrews are gaining new attention and recognition today, both locally and nationally, through the efforts of the Roy Chapman Andrews Society of Beloit. And whereas the legacy of Roy Chapman Andrews will be celebrated on Friday, March 2nd, 2018, when the Roy Chapman Andrews Society bestows its Distinguished Explorer Award on Richard Alley, Nobel Prize-winning geologist, whose work in the field and on the public stage has immeasurably advanced human understanding of the world's climate, past, present, and future. Now, therefore, the President of the Beloit City Council does hereby declare that Friday, March 2nd, 2018, be proclaimed Roy Chapman Andrews Day, to honor visiting explorer Richard Alley and to recognize the achievements of one of Beloit's most famous native sons. So congratulations.
Thank you, Council President Levy and the remainder of the council and City Manager Lori. I really appreciate the recognition. This is a signature event for Beloit. Tom Kelly, former city manager, created the Roy Chapman Andrews Society as a place for us to really promote Beloit
in a positive way, and created a coalition with Beloit College. This is our 17th recipient. So we've done this since 2003. And on March 2nd, we will put Mr. Alley to the test. We start with a 9:30 presentation to 1,100 high school students from Beloit, South Beloit, Beloit Turner, and Clinton. And then at 4:30, which everyone is welcome to come to the award recognition presentation at Wilson Theater at Beloit College. And there's still time to sign up for the fundraising celebratory dinner afterwards. So I'd welcome the public to join us for free. It's a free event sponsored by many of the area local corporations at 4:30, and then welcome you to sign up for the dinner in the evening. But once again, thank you very much for the recognition. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Item 3D, please.
Is a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month.
Now, if I could have Audrey Vaughn come forward, please, and also Alicia Wash, both wonderful educators in our district. And also, I would like to acknowledge that we have the assistant superintendent here, Dr. Williams, and also there is also the principal, Michelle, Nora Hendricks. So, is it Hendricks Nora, right? Okay. So pleased that you're here. So, ladies, can you come forward, please? And I'd like to present you with a proclamation from the city of Beloit. Whereas, in 1915, the father of Black history, Cotter Godwin Woodson, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and proposed the celebration of Black History Month. And whereas during this month, we remember the stories of those who have helped build our nation and advance the cause of freedom and civil rights. And whereas these are stories of the triumph of the human spirit and stories of people rising above their circumstances to build lives of dignity. And whereas during National Black History Month, the city of Beloit recognizes these champions of justice and the sacrifices they made to bring us to this point. We honor the contributions of African Americans since our country's beginning, and we recommit to reaching for a day when no person is judged by anything but the content of their character. And whereas our responsibility as citizens is to address the inequalities and injustices that linger, and we must secure our birthright freedoms for all people. As we mark more than 4 decades of celebrating Black History Month, let us reflect on the sacrifices and contributions made by generations of African Americans and all Americans. And let us resolve to continue our march toward a day when every person knows the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas, let us commit ourselves to raising awareness and appreciation of African American history, and let us reaffirm the promise of our Constitution. Now, therefore, the President of the Beloit City Council proclaims February 2018 as Black History Month in the city of Beloit and encourages the support and participation of all citizens to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs. Adopted this 19th day of February 2018. I know these ladies would have some words to share, but I just want to share that I had a chance to participate in both of these wonderful programs today, and I just can't say enough how thankful I am to each of these just special teachers. It takes special people to work in the district with our children and take such care of them, and to also let them be aware of Black history. So that means a lot. So I just want to say thank you for all of your work and your contributions that you're doing to our city and our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to just add some words.
First of all, I want to thank Dr. Williams for his support, and I'm most humble and appreciative of all that you do for the school district of Beloit. I also would like to thank my principal, Miss Nora, for being always supportive for whatever I creatively try to come to her office, and she encourages me to go with it. So I'm so thankful that I have such a wonderful principal. I want to thank Kevin Levy, the president, city manager, and all the council for this recognition. I am most humble, and I'm very thankful. Thank you so very much.
I didn't prepare any sort of speech, but I humbly accept this award, and I'm grateful for my students every single day and the chance to celebrate who they are, and I really appreciate this. Thank you.
And as they're taking their seats, I think it's important, as I often say, there's a lot of great things going on in the city, but we also have a lot of great things going on in the school district as well. I remember Audrey years ago when I had a cousin whose son was going to go to McNeil for the first time, and a nervous parent, and Audrey walked her through the halls and reassured this parent. And as a former board member, going to her room and visiting and seeing kids sprawled all over the floor, and I was like, what is going on? She's like, I told them when it's time for reading to get in their comfortable positions where they can read. That shows you the creativity of what we have out there. So I want the public, the community to know that everything you read in the paper about our schools is not true. There's great things, there's great schools, there's great students, there's great teachers out there. So I want the public to know that anytime you pick up the paper, and just because you read something negative going on about our students, and I say our students because as long as they're in this city, they're ours. And we need to do everything that we can do to help them succeed. So encourage teachers. It's easy to criticize, but we must encourage. We must do all that we can to help our youth. We need to look for ways to help them on the front end, because if not, we get tired of them going to the prison systems and to jails, but what are we doing on the front end to help that? So I think as parents, as community people, we need to get involved, and we need to, as a city, look and see what can we do to help our youth, to the principals at the schools, to the teachers at the schools, to Michelle Nora, who I've been knowing for a long time, the creativity that they have. That lets you know our students are going to be okay, because they're allowing the students to be themselves, but they're holding them accountable as well. And I think I can't express it enough. Let's promote the positive things that's going on in the schools and in the city, and stop focusing so much on the discipline issues. That's all I have to say.
Could I can't get my mic on. Could I encourage us all to stand in honor of the wonderful teachers and staff people we have here tonight, as well as the students, what President Levy said.
Item 4, public hearings, 4A, please.
Consideration of a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a rooftop seating area and to amend the layout of an existing ATM in the CBD1 Central Business District Core for the property located at 419 Pleasant Street.
Mrs. Christensen.
The applicant has proposed the renovation of the Vision Center building into a hotel to be known as Hotel Goodwin and a restaurant to be known as the Velvet Buffalo. The building will retain limited office space and will retain the existing Blackhawk Community Credit Union branch, which operates the existing freestanding ATM. The applicant has proposed a rooftop addition that includes a seating area for restaurant and/or hotel guests, which requires the conditional use permit. The proposed rooftop seating area is located in the northwest corner of the roof, as shown on the attached plan, and will be covered by a trellis. The seating area will be surrounded by an existing parapet wall and a glass railing in order to satisfy building code requirements. This is the item that went to Plan Commission and came back, and just in case you didn't know what was modified from the plan, basically they were pretty minor, but they were a change, and so they included keeping a second driveway on public avenue in order to improve circulation and keeping cross-access between the hotel parking area and the adjacent properties in East Grand Ave. And the roof plan involved moving the seating area to the northwest corner. It was on the other end of the roof. But this did require the conditional use because of the outdoor seating area, plus they changed the layout in the parking lot. in order to increase the number of parking stalls on the property. And actually now I think that drive-through functions better than what it did currently. The new design, I think, is much better. The ATMs must have 3 stacking spaces that allow change of mind exiting and do not impede movements in and out of off-street parking spaces. In order to address those concerns about the stacking spaces blocking parked vehicles, the applicant has agreed to sign and stripe the affected parking stalls as bank employee-only stalls, which was what was in the original design. We did a similar thing when these were originally approved. Plan Commission did review this on February 7th and voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to the 6 conditions which are included in the resolution before you tonight, which is that this conditional use permit authorizes the modification of the parking lot and utilization of the existing freestanding drive-up ATM, as shown on the site plan submitted by the applicant. Construction may not begin until the site plans are approved by planning staff. A lighting plan that complies with minimum lighting levels in the Architecture Review and Landscape Code is required. Prior to the use of the ATM, the applicant shall sign and stripe the 4 affected parking stalls that will be blocked by the ATM stacking spaces as bank employee parking only. Prior to the use of the ATM, the applicant shall sign and stripe the drive aisle serving the ATM as one-way southbound only through the use of painted arrows, one-way signs, and do not enter signs. Prior to the use of the rooftop seating area, the maximum occupancy and fire alarm systems shall be given approval by the building official. This conditional use permit allows the sale of alcoholic beverages in the rooftop seating area, but an alcoholic beverage license is required before alcoholic beverages may be served. And then our standard condition about major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being approved administratively. And this does meet the second access, that there's 2 points of access and all of that. Related to the rooftop area, which did come up at Plan Commission.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4A. If there's anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Preschel, is there a second? Second by Duncan. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of 4A say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 4B, please.
Consideration of a resolution authorizing a planned unit development master land use plan for the property located at 1500 4th Street.
Mrs. Christensen.
So this proposed PUD master land use plan involves the construction of a 2-story, 25,000 square foot office building to house administrative offices, board meeting rooms, training facilities, and other miscellaneous functions. The PUD master land use plan also includes an off-street parking lot containing 112 stalls with new driveways on 4th Street and Shore Drive. The proposed building footprint includes right-of-way that is requested to be vacated, which you may recall you referred to Plan Commission a couple meetings ago, and we'll come back to at your next meeting. The purpose of the PUD district, it's a special purpose zoning district, and it permits greater flexibility in site design and layout. And so that's why they were moving forward with this application. I think the intention when they started this project with the Welcome Center was, in terms of using this site, was to try to make it of a more urban scale, so closer to the sidewalk than the normal setback provisions allow. And so this PUD allowed that to happen. This building was on a part of a campus master plan, which was presented to Plan Commission and the council. The school board did approve phase 1, which includes the Welcome Center. This body has not taken action on that plan yet at this point, but it was approved by the school board. And what this PUD, the PUD land use plan portion of this would allow is for the development to be done as indicated on the site plan and subject to the conditions which are listed in the resolution, which is that the approval authorizes the construction of a school district of Beloit office building and related parking lots as shown on the PUD master land use plan and architectural renderings. No other commercial or residential uses are allowed on the subject property. Just to remind you that when you approve a PUD master land use plan, you're approving exactly what's in the site plan, what's being proposed, and the conditions of approval, and no other development except what is approved by this resolution is allowed. Prior to issuance of a building permit for this project, the applicant shall obtain an architectural review certificate and a certificate of zoning compliance. This development is allowed one freestanding monument sign up to 15 feet in height and 150 square feet in area, which may not include an electronically variable message component. The building may include up to 3 wall signs of up to 45 square feet per sign. Prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall relocate the existing storm sewer main that conflicts with the building footprint and shall obtain approval of an easement release. The applicant shall obtain city engineer approval of and permits for all the public utility work. The site plan shall include all of the sidewalk connections requested by the city engineer. The minimum building setbacks shall be those shown on the PUD master land use plan. The maximum height shall be 3 stories, and the site shall retain at least 20% open space. The applicant shall comply with all DNR requirements pertaining to storage, hauling, and disposal of contaminated soil. And then just a standard condition about major changes coming back through this public process, minor changes being able to be approved administratively. And this is on your agenda. The resolution is on as presented today.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4B. Anyone wishing to speak under item 4B this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 4B. And before we entertain a motion from council, I would like to hold this item over until our next meeting to go with item 4C so they can both be approved at the same time. Is there such a motion? Motion by Jacobson, second by Preschel. Any councilor questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, will be held over to our next meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 4C, please.
Consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning district map to change the zoning district classification from C3 to PUD for the property located at 1500 4th Street.
Mrs. Christensen.
This is just the second step in the PUD process, the first being the approval of the master land use plan, the second being the zoning, and then the third, as staff will review the site plans. It's a request to rezone from C3 community commercial to PUD. This office use is allowed in C3, but they're requesting the PUD zoning classification and to allow for the flexibility in site design.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4C. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4C, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. First call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening. Seeing none, this is on the agenda for a first reading, which would lay it over to our next meeting. Is there a motion? Motion by Jacobson, second by Forbeck. Any questions or comments?
I just had one.
Councilor Preschel.
As you know, I was at the Plan Commission meeting when they discussed this, and I just wanted to make sure that I had asked a question about the bike paths making their connection along the west side there, and because it's not clear from the drawings and what we're given here, but I was assured that that is in the plan and that will be something that will come back later on, and this doesn't affect that. So that was my concern, and I just wanted to make sure it was out there, that I'm aware of it, and I think that the west side bike path needs to, be remembered. So, okay. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is you're satisfied with the information you received?
Yes.
All right. There is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of approval of laying this over, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 4D, please.
Consideration of a resolution approving an amendment to the 2017 Annual Action Plan and CDBG budget.
Mrs. Christensen.
In 2003, the city provided community development block grant funding to assist with the acquisition of the land and then the construction of the Merrill Community Center. There was also some there was CDBG funds, and then there were city funds, and then there were Merrill Community Center funds that went into that project. Merrill Center closed in 2016 and sold the building to Community Action in 2017. The way the CDBG regulations stipulate is that the percentage of funds that were CDBG in the overall project, then the amount that it was sold for, we've got that same percentage of the proceeds, which in this case was 46%, which was $38,570.32. So this was money that was set aside for acquisition and construction. If you are putting the money into the same use you don't have to come back through this public process, but because we are changing the use of funds because there aren't acquisition construction projects of public facilities that we're looking to do at this time, it comes back through, it's considered a substantial amendment to our consolidated plan and annual plan. So what we're proposing to do with this $38,570.32 is put it into our housing rehab program to continue to support our neighborhood revitalization strategy area efforts, to provide housing rehab loans to our residents. And so this did go to the CDA, and they did recommend approval of that request.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4D. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak on 4D this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak on 4D this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening? Seeing none, I would close the public hearing and entertain a motion from council.
So moved.
Motion by Blakely. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Forbeck. Any questions or comments? With that, I do have one from Mr. Christensen. So just to be clear, that the funds that we are talking about transferring or moving is not programming funds, correct?
Not public service funds.
Not public service funds, correct. Okay. I want to make sure that that's clear. Part two of that question is, why can't this $38,500 be used for programming now that we still have an entity in that building? Can we use this money as part of that programming cost?
We are at our cap for public services, so HUD caps public service activities at 15%, and we are already at that cap. Because this money came in 17, so it's part of our 17 pot. And actually, we know what our cap is, where we're at with our cap, and so there's no room under our cap to give more money to public services.
Okay. And chances of laying it over for next year, is it kind of like you use it now or you lose it?
Well, we also went to our cap for 18, so there's,
Okay.
There's a HUD cap that,
Okay.
and but Merrill Community Center did receive money for 18 for programming, so.
Okay. All right. Just want to be clear. There is a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 5 is public comments. We have reached a point on the agenda where citizens may come forward and speak on items that are not necessarily on the agenda. We do ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will not cut you off, but I will get you a friendly reminder that you're approaching that. We ask you to refrain from any attacks from staff, city council people, or other individuals. If, in fact, you start heading down that road, I will ask you to be seated immediately. So we're asking you to be professional, be courteous, and be respectful. This is not a time also that counselors tentatively answer questions or ask questions. However, there may be situations where you may say something, we may ask questions for clarification. As a president, it is my duty and obligation also, if I see that something needs to be directed to a staff member, I will so do that to the city manager or to the appropriate staff member to get back with you with any further information. We did have individuals that did fill out sheets. If you did not fill out a sheet, don't worry about it. You can still come forward at this time. The first individual that did fill out a sheet was Dorothy Harrell. And we ask you to please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Harrell. I reside at 2284 Boulder Court in the city of Beloit. I first want to say my congratulations, even though they're not here, to Mrs. Wash and Mrs. Vaughn, two very excellent teachers within the Beloit School District. Good choices for that award. I also want to thank the council for the recognition for Black History Month for this month, the month of February. But I really rose to say that I wanted to applaud Chief Brad Leggett and the work that he did in reaching out to the community when it was made known that there would be no minority firefighters after the retirement in December. And he did an excellent job of working around the community with different agencies and different groups to try to name or find individuals for those positions. I think that that's something that we should be doing citywide. And as I hear President Levy admonishes us to not criticize but encourage. So I want to encourage the leaders, and we know that leadership starts at the top, that as you're doing your evaluation of the city manager, that be a part of what the city manager is asked to look at, and that the city manager would also ask the other departments to take a real look at who we're hiring and who has been hired in the city of Beloit across all departments, not just police and fire. I think that is a service that's well needed by the community. The other thing I want to address is the Comprehensive Planning Committee that's now operating and looking at housing. I was recently forwarded an email to distribute a survey that was going out around housing. At a meeting that I was at on 2 occasions that were mostly minority, I asked if anyone else in the room had gotten the survey. I got it through a school district of Beloit committee that I'm on. One other person in the group had gotten the survey. I know the committee has since met and made decisions about how to distribute that more widely and how to touch more people, because there was a small percentage of those surveys that were sent out or returned by minorities. So one of the suggestions that was given to the group was to send out some surveys by mail, and I hope that is going to happen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And just to, Dorothy, just to let you know also, to follow up on something that you said, I have already spoken with the city manager on making sure that we get a count of where we are as far as minority representation in the entire city organization, and then putting together a plan to make sure that we are represented based on our community. So she has already been directed to do that, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we are already working in that direction. We've already spoken to her about that. So thank you for your comments. They're greatly appreciated. Bill Dorr.
Bill Dorr, 836 Church Street. Just a couple concerns, I guess. And that is, I was at the Planning Commission for the school situation. It's not that I disagree with the plan or anything like that. I guess I just always pointed out that, and I want everyone to be aware of, like, I look at plans like as a 360, how does it affect the whole? And that eventually we will have to, as a community, decide whether these schools that have been abandoned, whether they get conditional use permits or whatever. And that a plan, in my point, is like, how does it affect the community as a whole? And as we go forward, some plans always said there's 180, where you just turn your back on something and go the other direction. Sometimes I'm concerned about how those decisions affect the whole. For instance, if we have a casino, and I go to Dubuque, and all the people on the west side would come into Beloit, and they would get to the casino. I guess my biggest concern is White Avenue. That they would come in 81, and I know in the school plan they're talking about changing 81. Then it goes through White Avenue, and that stretch right. Then they would get to Willowbrook and turn. We talk about the stadium, we talk about the fields downtown, and all that. And if those people are out at the hotels, how do they get downtown? They go through White Avenue, and that section, and that's a state highway. It's probably 20 years to have any kind of changes on a state highway. I'm not sure. With Mike, how long it really takes to make these plans, and we're not talking about it. And when I did look at that school plan, and they were there, they first opened up that school plan to like the business people, and they opened up to the 4th Street people, then to the regular citizens. And when I was there, being a builder, I look at plans. I look at it maybe differently than other people. And the customer will say, well, what do you think of this plan? And I'll say, wow, and I look at what they're doing downtown as, it's a high-end kitchen. It's beautiful, everything that they're trying to do. But it appears to me at times that, pardon the pun, but that I have to go through the bathroom in order to get to the kitchen. And I say that only because we are dumping traffic on White Avenue in these processes without having a discussion on it. And so it just concerns me. And then the last thing is, I'm reading a book by Dan Brown, and he talks about adding information into a computer that would say, where do we come from and where are we going? And the computer would spit out something and say, insufficient data to make an accurate response. And what I'm referring to is 2020's been doing this since 1988, been over 30 years now. And I'd like data. I'd like to know how has that helped our revenues? And to me, revenues are everything. When my wife says to me, Bill, you got great ideas. You want to do all these things. We don't have the revenues for these things. Where's your revenues? So it's very important. Has in the last 30 years, has it given us less state and federal aid? I still see 67%. Has it increased the values of our properties? Have we received, and I look in 10 years, and we basically in 10 years that I can see on the internet, and there again, insufficient data to make an accurate response. We basically did in 10 years what Janesville does every year. Janesville lost the GM plant, and everyone thought Janesville's going to go away. My gosh, they've just stomped along. At one time in my life, Beloit and Janesville were the same size. And it concerns me that if we don't look at a plan as 360 and how it affects everything, and I would love to have the data to say, so I can make an accurate response, for me to say that we look nice and that if you build it, they will come. How has that really changed the data? What's that information? And so going forward, you guys have to make decisions. You have to say, we're going to get rid of 60 homes around the high school, and we're going to put fields in there, which I don't know that that's revenue. Oh, there's going to be some condos. Well, that's speculation unless people are willing to dig those holes, at the same time all this is coming down. So I know going forward, I just asking, and you guys, some of you won't even be here, on the next time that this probably comes up, but to be concerned for how it affects the whole. And White Avenue is getting trashed. And
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Hoffman, please.
Hi, my name is David Hoffman. I live at the apartment community 2101 Freeman Parkway, Maple Creek. Thank you for hearing me. I just learned that you're going to talk about the parking today, this afternoon, so I didn't prepare anything. You should have pictures. I am the owner of the apartment community. I provide housing for hundreds of Beloit residents. This apartment community was distressed. I bought it in 2013, spent millions of dollars improving your city, and I actually live there now. There's a sidewalk next to the property with no parking signs. I would like any one of you can come by and see it, but my tenants are parking where there's parking allowed, but there isn't sidewalks. And so it doesn't cost anything to let my tenants park next to the sidewalk. And if there's any fees, I'd be happy to pay. So I'm just requesting that where it's logical and there's sidewalks, that the tenants be allowed to park there, even if it's just temporary in the daytime, for maybe 20-something people. The sidewalk's actually closer to their unit than the parking I provided. I have about 170 parking spots, so I have plenty. More than meet the requirements that are provided for parking, but geographically the street is closer for certain people. And you do have a picture in the handout that the city provided you. So
Okay.
that's what I'd like to make comments on. If anyone has any questions or wants to actually look at the property, I'm the only property on Freeman Parkway. Across the street, it's totally vacant. I have 10 acres of land there. We're just talking about 150 feet that has a sidewalk that I'd just like to my tenants to be able to park there.
Okay. Thank you. That's the last sheet that we have. We're going to get to 8B. I think it's under 8B, so we'll be discussing that a little bit later. So that concludes all the sheets I have. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under citizens' participation this evening? If so, please step forward and give your name and address for the record, please.
Brian Elliott, 2434 Dewey Avenue, Beloit, Wisconsin. President Levy, Vice President Ms. Duncan, as well as City Manager Luther. Again, my name is Brian Elliott. I'm with the Beloit Citywide Softball League. I'm the co-founder, along with my other co-founder, Mr. Scotty Davison. Our other co-founder, Ms. Patricia Majid, could not be here tonight. President Levy, you touched on something as far as accentuating the positive, as far as the city of Beloit as well as with the youth of Beloit. And that's what I'm here to do, actually. We're actually proposing a joint summer project between the city of the Beloit Citywide Softball League, the School District of Beloit, and the city of Beloit. The project will focus on academic, career, and recreational activities for students from the ages of 7 to 13. The career component will include a career exploration, as well as guest speakers who will share with students their career trajectories on how they reach their various career positions. The recreation component is structured softball. It is also important to expose students to other recreational activities besides the traditional sports of basketball and football. In fact, we're also thinking about future pilot projects that will incorporate recreational activities such as golf and tennis. We're requesting $5,000 from the city of Beloit to be used for equipment, uniforms, participation medals, as well as transportation and field trips. We have a operating budget of $10,000. Within the last 2 years, most have been donated by the School District of Beloit as well as the Beloit Foundation and Community Action. And then we have come out our own pocket as well. We're anticipating an enrollment of 200 kids this year, coming from all elementary and middle schools here in Beloit. This will be our third year in this project. The first year we started out with 48 kids. The second year we had 120, and now we're expecting an enrollment of 200 this year. This project has really blossomed. We're teaching kids respect for themselves, for other people, as well as sportsmanship and just being a good, productive citizen. We're also asking for the use of 2 fields. We're asking for the use of Telfer Park for a baseball diamond, as well as Kruger Fields baseball diamond. Now, the regular season begins on, well, first we have a fundamental camp, which starts usually the middle of June. It runs for 10 days, and it shows the kids how to play softball, fundamentals. Then the regular season starts on July 5th and runs for about 4 to 5 weeks. Then we have a culmination of a round-robin tournament. Now, the dates in between that, last year we attended a Brewer game. The kids went to the Museum of Science and Industry, and we're expected to do that this year, another Brewer game, as well as the Milwaukee Public Museum. We also anticipate asking guest speakers to come and talk to the kids and just to share their experiences with them. Now, as I said, our program has been successful these last 2 years, and we're hoping to continue the success with the city's help. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what I'll do is refer this to the city manager. If you could, Sarah, if you could get his contact information before he leaves, and then we can exchange that with the city manager, and we can see what, we have that dialogue go. Have her contact him and see what we can do. And Brian, Sarah's the lady in the back waving at you, so if you can just make sure she gets your information, we'd greatly appreciate it. No one else has filled out any other sheets. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under citizens' public comments this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, we would end that portion of the agenda and thank everyone who did participate. Move on to item 6, consent agenda, please.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Is there any council like anything removed from the consent agenda? Councilor Jacobson.
6F.
6F, so now anyone else would like anything else removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda now consists of items 6A through E, G through M. Is there a motion for approval for that portion of the consent agenda? Motion by Forback, second by Duncan. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That portion passes 7-0. Item 6F.
Consideration of a resolution approving a 25-lot final plat of subdivision called Oaks Plat Number 2 for the property located at 2750 Rachel Terrace.
And I believe this was removed so Councilor Jacobson can abstain, correct? So there's no presentation needed at this time. Is there a motion to approve that item on the consent agenda? Motion by Anderson. Is there a second? Second by Presho. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 6-0 with one abstain. Item 7, licenses, please. 7A.
7A is consideration of a resolution approving applicants for an alcohol beverage operator bartender's license for the period January 31st through February 13th, 2018. You have 12 recommendations for approval before you.
All right. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Blakely. Is there a second by Duncan? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of item 7A say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 7B, please.
7B is consideration of a resolution for a new Class A beer, Class A cider-only liquor license for Liberty Gas Mart, doing business as Liberty Mobile, located at 1407 Liberty Avenue. Harjinder Samra, agent for the license period ending June 30th, 2018. Harjinder has put forward a corporation change, so this business is in existent, license stays the same. Corporation changed by adding his wife.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Forback, second by Presho. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of 7B say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 7C, please.
7C is a consideration of a resolution for a new Class A beer, Class A cider only for Chopir Gas Mart, doing business as Beloit Mobile, located at 1902 Chopir Road. Harjinder Samra, agent for the license period ending June 30th, 2018. May I just say ditto?
And I will say, although, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Presho, is there a second? Second by Duncan. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 8 ordinances. 8A, please.
Consider of ordinance to amend sections 1302 and 1307 sub 3 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Beloit related to certain parking areas and restrictions in the City Hall parking lot located at 100 State Street.
Mr. Flesh, please.
Thank you. This ordinance proposed before you tonight will update the parking regulations, as Lori said, for City Hall. The current configuration of the lot was done in 2009, and we never updated the ordinance to reflect the new configuration. The proposed ordinance removes the employee parking restrictions on the north side of the building, on the north side of that lot, for outside normal work hours. It remains restricted during work hours, but on nights and weekends it'll now be able to public use. It also allows for oversized vehicles to be parked in the police restricted area on the southeast side of the City Hall parking lot where all the police vehicles are parked. So it'll let them put larger vehicles in there. Traffic Review Committee approved the recommendation 4-0, and staff recommends approval of this also.
Is there a motion for approval?
I so moved.
Motion by Blakely. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 8. Lay it over. Correct. Correct. I'm sorry. Oh, thanks for the clarification. 8B, please.
8B is consideration of an ordinance to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances for the City of Beloit relating to no parking restrictions along Freeman Parkway, north of Fuller Drive. Attorney Krieger.
Attorney Krieger.
I've got a light now. Okay.
In the staff report, you learned about the request, and Mr. Hoffman did request the no parking just to the north of Fuller Drive on the east side of the road. Staff and the Traffic Review Committee voted against approving that request. While this was being drafted for your consideration, it was some old terminology was found, and so we've basically updated that language to comport with the Traffic Review and staff's decision to deny the request, but then also update the information. So approval of the proposed ordinance in its current form would actually deny Mr. Hoffman's request to remove the no parking zone. If council would like to approve the request to remove the no parking zone, if you look at the ordinance that you have, in section 1, where it says Freeman Parkway from Fuller Drive to 365 feet north of Fuller Drive east side, we would remove that section if you wanted to grant the request to remove no parking. Does that make sense?
I guess the question that I have is, and I'm going to try to follow this as much as possible, so we wouldn't even be discussing this if the person who owns the property didn't want us to keep parking on the street, correct? Am I right there?
Right, we wouldn't have this before you but for Mr. Hoffman's request to remove the no parking regulation. So he wants to allow parking on Freeman Parkway, and his request was taken to the Traffic Review Committee. That request was denied, and so it was brought for you for consideration since they're a recommending body.
Okay.
So today you have essentially Mr. Hoffman's request to have no parking removed on Freeman Parkway. It was difficult with this one because normally you see things drafted in the affirmative, and so that's why this ordinance is drafted in the affirmative. But if you want to grant Mr. Hoffman's request, I can change the language to allow that. Essentially, it comes down to whether or not you want to grant the request or not.
Okay, so then the other question I have is, what is the sole purpose of removing the parking? Has it been an issue? Have people complained?
Mr. Hoffman had indicated in his comments and then also at Traffic Review that the residents that live on the furthest west part of his property are closer to the street parking than they would be to their on-site parking. And so it would be more convenient for them to park on the street in that location just north of where that driveway entrance is. And so that's why he's requesting that no parking zone be removed. Staff was opposed to that request and Traffic Review was opposed to that request based on the traffic congestion in that area and trying to keep that away from the Fuller Drive and the entrance to the apartment complex, trying to keep the parked vehicles away from that area.
And so approximately, do we know about how many individuals that affects? If we say they have to park on site, do we know how many residents will be affected from that or no? Do we have a number of how many people will be if we say no?
Well, I couldn't gather, I wouldn't know precisely. My guess is, Mr. Flesch, correct me if I'm wrong, do you know how many cars would fit in that location of 200 feet?
About 10.
About 10. So it's essentially 10 spaces of parking that would be on Freeman Parkway if you grant the request.
Okay, let me go with the city manager first, and then you, Council Preschel, because I want to make sure that when we move forward, we're as clear as possible on this, because it's kind of like a twofold confusing thing here, and it's different. So I want to make sure that we are clear moving forward.
If council thinks of it this way, if you want to grant Mr. Hoffman's request to remove the no parking zone, then we will strike the one sentence in this ordinance that says parking on the east side. If you want to deny his request and follow the recommendation of staff and council, you would approve it in its current form, or you would lay it over in its current form.
What about the third option?
City manager and then Councilor Preschel.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to review the information that was presented at Traffic Review Committee that highlights the public safety concern that is the basis for staff's recommendation to not allow parking at this location. I absolutely understand the convenience factor that is the request of the owner and don't mean to minimize that, but we do have a concern about public safety given the curvature of this particular roadway, the access on the south to Fuller Drive, and the proximity of other individuals who are traveling along Freeman and making sure that the line of sight is sufficient. So I would ask that the city engineer be allowed to elaborate on any of the other concerns that I may have missed. Not in attendance at the Traffic Review Committee, but looking at the information, certainly again, I don't mean to minimize the concern of the property owner and the convenience factor for the individuals living there, but the other factor that the council has to concern and weigh are all the travelers who are going along this roadway and any potential line of sight or other safety concerns that might be raised due to those cars potentially being parked in that area.
You hit it all, except the one additional one is their driveway is there too, so we want to make sure there's adequate sight distance for their driveway as they enter and leave the facility, the apartment complex, which is just a little bit north of Fuller Drive.
So the reason I wanted to have an opportunity to share that information is because staff's recommendations aren't made in absence of other rationale. Certainly the intent is not to create an inconvenience. That may be an unintended consequence, but the basis for that recommendation is on the safety factors and line of sight on this particular stretch that you can see on the drawing submitted within your packet.
So when we say safety, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear, so if someone is parked there, let's say we have, and I see the chief is there, if we have to get a fire engine down that way, would that be an issue if people are parked on the street there? I'm just asking. When we say safety, I want to make sure that we.
Right. So what I was referring to actually is more the potential for traffic accidents, the potential for entering this curve and not being able to see when you're entering the parking structure for the property itself. That's to the south of the photo. And also going farther north around the curve, the line of sight as traffic is flowing. So I was more focused on a concern about the driving individuals throughout that space. And I don't believe that we would necessarily have an issue with access for emergency vehicles so long as no parking continued to be not allowed on one side of the street.
Okay, and then I'll get to you, Councilor Preschel. Have we heard anything from the residents? Do they seem to care either way? Have they weighed in either way?
To the best of my knowledge, the actual residents have not attended the meetings. It was the owner who made the request. Am I mistaken?
Correct. This round, they did not weigh in 2014 when it was brought before them. Before, they did weigh in, and they were not wanting to support additional parking.
And that would be the residents to the north?
That was residents to the north.
So when you say additional, they did not want the additional parking on the street?
Correct.
I believe they opposed an extension of a sidewalk, too.
Well, that's entirely something. I just want to kind of stick to this. I just want to stick to this because, I mean, I don't want to muddy this anymore. It's not really muddy, but I want to make sure that we're just clear as we move forward. Councilor Preschel, you had a comment?
Well, I know the request was to remove parking on the east side of that street, and we're just talking about the parking language itself being on both sides and encompassing it all. But, you know, I can see where the old manor entrance probably precluded having any parking across from that old manor entrance back in the day when there was a manor there. But, you know, I could see, you know, allowing parking for a small section of this area on the east side of the street. And that doesn't seem to, based on what I'm seeing from Google Maps and the drive out there, it's hard to tell in the winter, but it seems like it's got pretty good sight lines. You're pretty far away from the entrances. And, you know, maybe it wouldn't be even 100 feet, but it would be a little bit more than what's there now. And I was thinking that was the third option, and I don't see where that's a possibility here, really, given the language we have to work with. So I didn't bring it up earlier because I didn't think we were going to I just didn't think it was going to work, so.
If council wants to propose additional, we can draft new language. If you want to
That would just encompass it a
have
little bit,
something,
yeah.
if there was a request of the council to have the no parking eliminated north, a certain feet north of the apartment complex's driveway.
Yeah.
Language could be drafted for that.
Yeah, just,
So
you know,
you
like
would-
say 50, 60
Right.
some odd feet or whatever is there. So you still have this clear sight lines because it's a fairly straight stretch and there's already parking north of there, you know, that's unrestricted. There would just be just a little bit more. It would be a nice, you know, it would be I could see where there wouldn't be a whole lot of issues as long as it's just on that one side and it's well away from the intersection areas and stuff. And there's no longer a manor across the street to be concerned with entrance and exit from.
So then the question I have, and I'll get to you, Councilor Jacobson, in just a second. So what I'm hearing is there's adequate on-site parking
There is.
that everyone could park there.
There is.
The main reason for the change is because there's a few units that's closer to that street than the on-site parking.
Correct.
We have not heard any complaints from any of the residents. The only time we heard from the residents is they were saying pretty much leave it the way it is, correct? That we park on site.
Those residents to the north, not the residents of
Okay. Okay. But we haven't heard from the residents of the complex either way. So they are just, because
Mr. Hoffman's raised his hand, so I.
you have to go up there and you name and address, please.
My name is David Hoffman, 2101 Freeman Parkway. I do live on site. I did provide a list of 120 people that signed a petition, you know, in favor of parking on Freeman Parkway. I only know of one tenant who doesn't even live on that street, one resident who lived on that street who made the complaint about parking there. So she lived 2 blocks away. So I provided a list of 120, you know, against one person.
Added to the TRC?
Correct.
Councilor Jacobson.
Could I hear from the counselor who was at the traffic review committee to discuss what occurred there?
That would be me. Essentially, you've heard all of it. We did hear a presentation from you, and there was a mention, or the petition itself was presented. I do think in my own comments, I mentioned something along the lines at the meeting of what Mark was suggesting, saying, does it have to be that entire length? Could there be a couple convenience spots instead? But I'm not a voting member of the committee. So essentially, after hearing everything, I agreed with the committee. But having Mark bring it up, Mr. Preschel bring it up this evening again, I must say, you know, I'm tempted to reconsider that notion and consider, if I understand what you are saying, Mark,
Yeah.
is that essentially what you're getting at?
Yeah, I'd say, I don't know, I'm just looking at the map provided by Mike here, and like an area that would be from, I don't know, it looks like about 20 feet, 30 feet from the drive entrance, you know, just 30 feet south of that, and then extending to the north where it would meet up with the existing parking.
Okay, let me
Just a small area.
let me do this.
I don't have any way.
Let me go. Councilor Jacobson, go right ahead.
With all due respect, I understand it's 100 feet, and so if we go 20 feet from the entranceway, I'm doing 20 plus 20, that's 40. I mean, now we're looking at 50 feet, which is 2 spots, 3 spots, I don't know,
It's not a lot.
correct, it's not a lot.
I'm looking at 6 cars parked there on the map you provided, and I'm looking at a space for about 5 more, by my thinking.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just looking at the map that Mike provided here, and I'm looking at 6 cars on the Google Earth map, and I'm counting about the equivalent of of allowing for about 5 more. Not a lot, but it's a positive gesture and it's a compromise, and I like compromise. So.
But we would still, my understanding is we would still have the safety concerns that the city staff is concerned about now, correct? And we have to take a look. I mean, City Manager Luther.
If the council wishes, we can go back and look at other options and review the topography or the geography more carefully. I don't want to respond on the fly, if you will, because this wasn't considered at the Traffic Review Committee. It came forward with the recommendation for no parking. So without further analysis, I think it would be premature to make a statement one way or another.
Okay, now, so let's say we wanted to change this, City Attorney. Would this need to go back to Traffic Review Committee if we decide to change the original request?
That would be your choice. They are a recommending body. There is no explicit procedure for the Traffic Review Committee and this body, on how things are handled. If you want them to go back and explore the idea of, at what point on the east side of Freeman Parkway that they would be comfortable with allowing parking, then you could do that. I think the next Traffic Review Committee is probably next week. Okay.
I would,
So it would be able to go to Traffic Review and then still come back for a second reading on March 5th, taking into consideration the drafting of it's going to be the most difficult part because you have an ordinance in front of you today. So if it comes back with a substitute amendment from council and then from the Traffic Review Committee and then council wants to make further modifications, that'll get a little bit hairy, but it certainly can be done.
So, because I guess what I'm leaning towards to do is we've heard the discussion of the council, and I'm sure staff kind of heard the discussion about what we're kind of looking towards. If we can put this back to Traffic Review, see if they could come up, if they have any ideas based on our conversation that we had here this evening. But is there a way to do away with this motion or this plan this evening and send it back to Traffic Review, or would we have to do it amended?
Well, if you send it back to Traffic Review now, they could hear it at their meeting next week, right? Or it would have to wait till, it's really a simple item.
Could we just add it to their agenda? Their agenda should not be posted yet.
Okay.
Okay.
So they would hear it next week, and it could come, and then we could bring their recommendation. There's a lot of assumptions here because they could say no, we like the no parking there. So and then we would have to amend the language if council decided to submit a change to it. So we can certainly take it back to Traffic Review, have their recommendation, if any changes, back before you on the 5th, and we can just kind of go from there. And if we have to make some amendments on the fly, we will do our best to do that.
Greatly appreciated. But I think because otherwise we're going to try to hash this out all night, and then we'll have a spot where maybe one car could park or 20. And I would rather send it back to Traffic Review with the discussion that we had here this evening. And please, if staff is confused on anything that we said, I think if we get with the clerk, we record. We got to see.
No, I think it's clear. You're looking to allow some parking north of the driveway entrance of the complex to where parking is currently allowed. Somewhere in there is what I'm hearing.
Right.
And whatever, the safety considerations, something like that, they would have to review it. But from what I'm hearing, the parking on the east side, south of the apartment complex entrance, that is just north of Fuller Drive, that would still be considered a no parking area, correct? Because it's right off of Fuller Drive. There's a lot of, there's an intersection there. Okay.
Right. But I guess when we're also talking about safety, I want to make sure at some point we hear from police and fire if we have cars parked there.
Well, they are members of the Traffic Review Committee, are they not? They
Okay.
are.
Okay.
So they are a member of that committee.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? So we don't need a motion or anything because this is on for the first reading, so we just...
Right. So we need the motion to lay it over, and then staff will take it back to the Traffic Review, and then we'll bring it back to you on March 5th with a update, and we'll go from there.
So do our motion need to include, we want to lay it over and refer it back to traffic?
Correct.
Because
Yep.
I want to make sure that that's in there too. So, that being said, is there a motion?
I move that we put this,
That we lay the ordinance over.
lay the ordinance over and refer it back to traffic
Traffic review at their next scheduled meeting.
for their next scheduled meeting.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second? Second by Preschel. Any counselor comments or questions?
Yes.
Counselor Blakely.
Thank you. I would just like to recommend to any citizens listening in, if you have a personal interest in this matter, Traffic Review Committee does meet next Monday afternoon at 1:30 upstairs, and citizens are welcome to attend and speak very briefly about their concerns and interests. If you do have an interest and are not able to be at that meeting, try emailing or contacting some of us city council members before that meeting, or the city manager. I'm a non-voting member of the Traffic Review Committee, so it would be especially good to let me, Sherry Blakely, know via email especially would be the easiest way. If you contact other city council members, I hope that they will, they're not required to, but I hope they would pass along your comments perhaps to Mike Flesh or other members of the Traffic Review Committee.
Okay, thank you. So there is a motion, there is a second. Everybody clear? I'll just check, I want to make sure. Okay. All those in favor of approval of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Thank you very much. 8C, please.
Consideration of an ordinance to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, relating to the removal of the no parking designations on Lee Lane and Blarney Stone Drive.
Mr. Flesh.
This one's housekeeping. The city is in the process of updating the signage in the area of the former Morgan School. As part of the update, the staff is requesting to have the parking restrictions removed that were put in place when the school was an active location as a school. The proposed ordinance removes the no parking designations along Lee Lane and Blarney Stone Drive, as those designations are no longer needed since it's no longer a school. The school speed limit signs and crossing signage related to the Morgan School have already been removed, and since it is no longer used as a school, Traffic Review Committee recommended approval, 5-0. Staff recommends approval also.
This is on our agenda for the first reading. Is there a motion to lay over? Motion by Anderson, second by Duncan. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of laying this over to our next scheduled meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0.
8B is an ordinance to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, establishing no parking along Brannigan Road West Side.
Mr. Flass.
Thank you. This is also a housekeeping one. They were also in the process of updating signage in the area. In Brannigan Road, staff was, and as part of that update, the staff found that there wasn't a formal designation for the posted no parking signs along the west side of Brannigan Road between Wayetta and Milwaukee Road. Therefore, we're proposing that the ordinance be passed to authorize that to be done. Traffic Review recommended this also, 5-0. Staff also recommends that.
Is there a motion to lay this over to our next meeting? Motion by Blakely. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 9, appointments, please.
There is only one appointment this evening, and it is to the Appointment Review Committee. It is Daniel Borowski, 1301 Chapin Street, for a term ending December 31st, 2020.
Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Anderson, second by Duncan. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. We reach item 10 on our agenda this evening is counselor activities and upcoming events. And I want to preface this by saying I don't want to be rude or strict, but we do have another closed session meeting after this, and it's already approaching 8:30. So if people would like to comment, we can certainly go through that, or if we would like to hold our comments to the next meeting, that you can do that as well. Well, of course you would. Councilor Jacobs said.
I'll make it brief. I just wanted to remind everyone about the primary tomorrow, that's the 20th, and that there are two consolidated voting locations, which is important, Mr. President, to remind our citizens that it's consolidated voting locations tomorrow. So on the west side, if you vote at Converse, Gaston, Hackett, or the Historical Society, you will vote at the Historical Society. And if you vote at the library, First Congregational Church, Todd School, River of Life, or Central Christian, you will vote at Central Christian Church tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. And also quickly, I also want to thank the two, or commend the two high school students that helped save the woman who was having a medical issue, from what I understand, at Burger King. Certainly shows that young people are less judgmental than we are. So I hope I made that quick, and congratulations.
And very well. And I think with that last announcement there, if we could get some additional information or names on those high
I think
schools.
they're being honored. Are they being honored by the fire department?
Is that the 1:30? Is that the one at 1:30?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one at 1:30? Okay.
I'll follow up with the chief.
That's a different one.
Oh,
That's a different
okay.
one.
Well, we
Yeah,
will-
follow up, because if not, I would like to have them recognized at city council meeting.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk to Sarah and Lori about that.
Well, I was just. Oh my God, I tell you. All right, anybody else have anything to say?
I do.
Oh my God, no, just kidding. Councilor Forbeck. We're going to take it, Councilor Forbeck, Councilor Presho, then Councilor Anderson, then Councilor Blakely, then Vice President Duncan. We're just going to go through it, so go right ahead.
Just quickly, I wanted to say I was at the meeting of the steering committee for our new long-range plan, and I'm sorry Dorothy Harrell isn't here right now, but for everybody else who heard her concerns about this, which I think are legitimate, but it was really wonderful to hear that we are setting up at the library, at the schools, and can anybody else think? Anyway, a third place. So we can grab people, say, have you had a chance, to fill this out yet? So we were very aware that we need to do some extra reach out, and I was proud of staff for recognizing that too.
Is that survey also on the website?
It is. It is, yes.
Is there a way, because I know we're very active on Facebook and all that stuff, is that too cumbersome to put that out on Facebook as well?
Been on there,
Because
too.
we can share that with other people. But usually when I see something like that, I would share it, and I haven't
Been
seen
on
it.
there.
So if I can, sure.
Plan steering committee meeting, we realized that we're underrepresenting renters. We're underrepresenting minorities in general. So it's full of white people, the survey right now, and underrepresenting men. So we talked about how to reach out, and maybe online isn't the best way. So, I mean, we're open to ideas or people to reach out to. So if you have ideas, send them to me and Drew, and we'll follow up. Right now, it's still on the website. It was on the Facebook page, and Charles Haynes also shared it on his Facebook page. So if you want to share it, that'd be great.
Well, I thought Dorothy today talked about mailing.
But that would be.
She had a conversation with Drew. Drew
Okay.
reached out to her, so I think that was a
Great.
conversation they were having.
Yes, that's right. He was going to get a hold of her.
And the reason I'm pushing the web, because mailing it could be expensive, so.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to figure out a best way.
And Survey
to
Monkey
do
just does all that stuff.
Correct. Have we thought about looking with the schools and maybe if they're having a family night or a PTO night or something?
Well, I suggested high school conferences this Thursday.
Right, so that, I think
If
that'd
you
be
could
the
sit
idea,
there
but then
between
also
5
the
and 7.
elementary schools, because.
They have it next week, I think.
Yeah,
conference.
so that would be, I think, a perfect time, because a lot of people come out to those individuals as well.
Well,
so.
they brought up going around the polling places, and Drew wasn't sure if we could do that.
Right.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.
So we're working on it.
Thank you. Councilor Presho.
I just have to say thank you guys and everybody that showed up for the gallery opening on the 2nd of February. That was really nice. And I cried a couple times. Next week, I will not make the Traffic Review Committee meeting because I have What the Tech at Grinnell Hall. That's my monthly, that's my conflict. Same time as the traffic review, so. But, so Sherry's going to be on the ball. She'll talk about compromise and the usefulness of it. So that's all. We'll move
Thank
on.
you. Councilor Anderson.
I was going to mention the voting, but Beth took that away, so I'll talk about something else then. Last week, I went to a diversity action team event at Merrill Community Center, and it was the topic was speed friending, which is like the same as speed dating. I have never participated in that, but apparently it's the same exact thing. It was a minute and a half getting to know somebody across the room, and it was definitely a lot of fun, and I think they plan on doing that event again. If it's going to be in Beloit this time, I'll definitely keep you guys posted. It was surprisingly a lot of fun, and I don't like that look you've been giving me, Kevin, so I don't but that's all I got.
I'm just saying you compared it to speed dating, and they say
But that's what they said. That's
famous last words. They told him, right?
Yeah, that's what
Councilor
they told me.
Blakely.
Nancy Forbeck and I were both at the initial presentation of survey results. I agree with everything that has been said. How's that for brevity? And if I hadn't added that last question, it would have been brief. And about the spring primary tomorrow. Many people don't think primaries are important, but we have two important matters on the ballot tomorrow that really concern Beloiters. One is the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We're going to have a chance to narrow down a roster of 3 people to the 2 people who will run in the April election. It's really important. If you have feelings and beliefs about the law, you need to vote tomorrow. Another super important reason to vote in the primary tomorrow is we have a roster of 5 people running for the Beloit Board of Education. That's going to be narrowed down to only 4 people who will be on the April ballot. So tomorrow's an important day, and it won't take you much time at all.
Vice President Duncan.
I'll be very, very brief. I just wanted to mention that we have a lot of vacancies I serve on the Appointment Review Committee, and I just want to mention there are so many vacancies, and we talked earlier about keeping the good things going on in Beloit. It's important that we have people fill the vacancies on our different committees in order for our city to continue to run like it does. And so if you have some free time and you'd like to put your talent to use, please go to our website and look at joining one of our committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11, City Manager's presentation. 11A, please.
It's the Landmarks Commission Annual Report.
Thank you.
And then we'll be pointing it at
Alex Blazer.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening, councilors, city manager. I'm Alex Blazer, chair of the Beloit Landmarks Commission, here with the annual report, and which is required by the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and I'm here to fulfill that obligation. Our commission consists of 6 members, and our city representative and Rudy Marino, our new planner, who is doing a great job, by the way. And our city representative is Clinton Anderson. I'll see you tomorrow night. And we have Commissioner Ruth Vader, who is the co-chair, and Rick McGrath, who was here. He ran out, just like everybody else ran out on me. And Chris Gallagher, Steve Truesdale, and Chris Jacobson. The function of the Beloit Landmarks Commission is to basically oversee all of the alterations of the exteriors of places in historical districts and landmarks. We have on the Bluff Street District, the College Park District, and the Merrill Street District, and also 46 individual listed landmarks, which consist of 321 properties that we oversee in the city of Beloit. These are just a list of the things that we've approved. Some of these things are approved by the commission, and some of the things can be staff approved, but they all need a certificate of appropriateness, which is applied by the property owner. some of the activities, in addition to what just approving these alterations, are we finally got up the signs to designate the landmarks areas and the historical districts. They turned out really well. We took a lot of time and effort to design these in a way that would be very visible and fill the needs of everybody who was concerned about it. And being that I live in a historical district, I didn't think that I would think much of it, but driving around, seeing it on the corner by my house, it's kind of neat. The historic district also has a nomination for the Milwaukee Road Emerson Historic District, which is going to include 150 homes. The Legacy Architectural Incorporated was selected to complete the nomination work, and the neighborhood kickoff meeting was completed on November 21st of last year. And before I close, what questions would you have?
Are there any questions?
I think you're doing a good job.
Yes.
You're so kind.
Thank you for hanging out with us this late and waiting.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
That's what I thought. So, any questions?
I just had one.
Mark?
How's the progress going on changing the College Park District signs?
Okay.
Is that going to happen?
I just knew that was the one thing that would probably come up because we didn't mention it. It is in the process, and of course, and if anybody else knows anything about this, chime in. But it's a process that, from what I understand, they've gone to the state historical because it's listed on the state historical register as what it is now, the Near East Side. So if people were to look that up, they would see that Near East Side, and the people in the area want it to be called the College Park District, as you know. So we are in the process of that. There's a process by request, and I'm not so sure where we are with that, but it is a long process. What I understand is that it's going to take something like 3 years for the state to actually move on that. So, and I think that they're taking other action to do that because the State Historical Society, I guess, is given permission to do it on our own. But again, don't quote me. It could be. It comes up almost every meeting. So, and our meeting's tomorrow night, so come get some more information. We don't get as much of an audience as you do, so which is sad because we're very interesting people.
Yeah. Anything else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What happened? Did I get rid of it? What item number 12?
Into closed session, so if you want to take a motion to go into closed session, you will not be re-adjourning into open session this evening. It will take place on the 4th floor, so.
Is there a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Precious, second by Blakely. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. I will allow everyone at least 2 minutes for a break if you need one, but we're going to be in the 4th floor, so we'll be in recess for 2 minutes.